Hi, everyone. We will start the session in just a few minutes. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all well and healthy. My name is Umaya Daud. I am an education advisor at the Islamabad office. I have joined the Islamabad office around 8 months ago, and I have a degree in international education policy from Columbia University. And today we are doing the Fulbright journey session with Dr. Areba Syed. Thank you for joining us today, Areba. This is our third session, or maybe the last session in the series of Fulbright sessions for this year. Dr. Areba has an undergraduate and a master's degree from NED University, Karachi, and pursued her PhD in land and water resources from Iowa State University. She was part of the 2017 Fulbright cohort and has recently joined NED University as an assistant professor after returning to Pakistan. We will talk about Dr. Areba's journey and how being a Fulbright alumni and a Fulbright student or a part of the program was a step towards her bringing some meaningful change and progress in her life, as well as how it changed her thinking about contributing back to the country or her community. This year, we are choosing from our Fulbright cohort people who have done their degrees in unconventional fields. This is to encourage and diversify the applicant pool. The speaker will talk about their personal journey, academic experience at the university, and how it shaped their thinking, career, and life goals. Before we start, a bit about who we are. USEFP is the Fulbright Commission in Pakistan. USEFP promotes mutual understanding between the people of Pakistan and the people of the United States through educational and cultural exchange. To learn more about our organization, programs, and facilities, you can check out our website, www.usefp.org. USEFP have several departments, and including those departments, including program department, advising department, testing department. So all these departments are part of the USEFP, and you can find all the details about these departments on our website. Also, before we start, I want to note that we will be taking question and answers at the end of the session. For your questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, and Dr. Areba will take them at the end. Now I will not hand over the session to Dr. Areba. Now I will, we'll have a conversation about her journey and how she. How this journey has been really, really interesting or progressive for her. Areba, before we start, we would like to know a bit about who you were before you became part of Fulbright. What's your background? What was your personal journey? That will give a bit of context to our audience.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So before I was selected as a Fulbright scholar, I'm a Karachiite. I've spent my whole life in Karachi. I did an O-levels from Beacon House, and then I switched and I did inter from Karachi board, which was kind of complicated. People who have done this would know how the switching works. But after my inter, I was fortunate enough to get shortlisted as an engineering student at NED University. I did my undergrad in urban and infrastructure engineering, then my master's also from NED University in civil engineering with a major in water resources management. And at the same time, while I was doing my master's, I was also working at NED University as a graduate student. So I was helping with research, and I was also doing some teaching assistantship. And so I chose academics for myself. And once you're in academics, then you start hearing this like noises. I was like, okay, so you're gonna do a PhD, right? I'm like, oh my God, I can hardly finish my master's. How can I do a PhD? But because I had a few other colleagues and friends alongside that were also motivated to do a PhD, and they were applying for PhD programs. I applied for Fulbright too, and very, very fortunately, I got selected, and here I am a couple of years later with my PhD degree as a Fulbright scholar.
So, Areba, my next question would be, what motivated you to choose this major? Because this is something I can understand that you did your bachelor's degree in engineering, and then in master's you did specialize in water and land resources. But what motivated you to do that? Because I'm sure this is not something that a lot of women are taking up in your university or as a subject interests them.
One of the factors that I would say is, so throughout my undergrad, I was always more interested in classes that were oriented towards environmental engineering. So when it comes to environmental engineering, it includes land resources, water, and air. Fortunately, during my final year in my undergrad, we had a professor who had just returned from Canada, and he taught us one of the most important water resources classes. And I did not know that by then, but later on I discovered that he was also a Fulbright alumni. He did his master's as a Fulbright scholar way back. But after taking his class, I was like, this is the professor I think who would give his 100% in teaching me all the professional skills and all the technical skills that I need to excel. So I started working as a graduate student with him, and that just, it was basically the partial interest in environmental engineering, and then the mentor that I chose to work with, which led me to this final path.
Well, that's very interesting to know that he was also a Fulbright alumni, and he did his PhD from Canada later.
He did his master's from Oregon State University. That was on Fulbright, but he did his PhD from Iowa State University, the same university where I did my PhD from. That was through World Bank funding. And he was working in Canada later on. Yeah.
Sure. So, so I can understand that. So a person can be influenced by any incident in their life to choose their majors or to choose where they want to go and how they want to pursue their future. So it's interesting to know that you were more interested in the professor and how he has taken his subject and made you interested in this subject. But once you were interested, what is something that you really, really value in a sense that what you really are, this is something that makes you, and you did a PhD in this now. So what is land resources and water resources that this subject gives you as a unique experience?
Personally, I'd say that just learning the impact of managing, like if you manage land and water resources in a good way, how much impact that can have on a common person's life, especially people in Pakistan. That was one of the biggest motivating factor. Once I got into this field, did my master's, and then I saw how little expertise Pakistan overall has when it comes to water resources management. That really motivated me to learn even more and to be able to have those technical skills to be able to contribute to the community. And for that, I think Fulbright really helped me get those technical skills from Iowa State University, that I'm able to come back. After coming back, I'm able to lead some projects and see some change happening around.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to ask this question or probe a little bit more, because this year we have chosen our Fulbright alumni on the basis of the fact that they are from fields that are not the common, or they are from unconventional fields, and it's also to make sure that they diversify their interests. Engineering, electrical engineering, and all these fields are really important. But we also want people, and especially women, to also understand that they can go into more diverse fields, and there's definitely space for them there, and that there's definitely something to gain out of there and bring a new expertise back to the country as well. So tell us how what was your Fulbright process? How did you think about applying there, and how did the process go in itself?
Okay, to be very honest, I will be very honest regarding my experience. I never thought that I could get any international scholarship. I used to think, okay, I'm a hardworking person, but I don't have a 3.9 or 4 CGPA, or I have a little bit of experience regarding research by the time that I applied for my Fulbright. But I had a friend who was also applying for Fulbright. She had done her master's in water resources through Commonwealth Scholarship in the UK. And she was determined to get another international scholarship. And while she was applying for her PhD, I was also supposed to apply for my PhD because we had the same timeline. And she motivated me to actually apply for Fulbright. And basically, I applied for Fulbright thinking that, okay, going through the whole application procedure, I'll be prepared to apply for other applications when the time comes. But I was very fortunate that it went through and I got selected for my Fulbright.
So tell me about the process a little bit. The application process, was it very difficult, very easy? How intimidating that process was?
I'd say that it was not difficult. It was just rigorous. So the process, the things that you need to fill in, and the process you have to go through is just a little bit rigorous, because you have to provide a lot of information, and it has to be accurate, and you have to be prepared for what is coming up. It's not difficult. I wouldn't say that it's difficult. It's just rigorous.
And your statement of purpose, the essays that you wrote, what the process around that was?
So for my statement of purpose, I wrote it out of my heart. I'd say I tried to keep it professional, but I wrote it what was in my heart. I wrote about my personal journey, the difficulties that I've had, difficulties or conveniences that I've had during my professional experience since I was a kid. And what I think how my PhD degree could contribute to the well-being of the country. That was, I think, a major part in my statement of purpose. There's a lot of areas in water resources management within Pakistan that need attention, but one of the areas that I was the most concerned about was just the situation in Balochistan. We have a lot of water in Balochistan, but really bad management. It's like Balochistan has so much potential, but not enough planning and management. That is what I highlighted in my statement of purpose. And I think that helped.
Great. So now we jump to the next phase of, the one more question we would like to ask you is, how was the experience, the interview experience for you?
So when I got the call that I've been shortlisted and I would get the details of the interview date through email, I was on my way home from work, and I was kind of in shock, and I was like, is this really happening? So the interview process was a little bit nerve-wracking, because it's always nerve-wracking. I mean, no matter how old you get and what kind of interview you're going, you're just like, okay, there's gonna be new people and they're gonna be judging me. And it's like, this is a very short time to make an impression on the people, on the panelists. But the sequence in which the questions were asked they just led from one question to another. And if you have a clear idea in your head, what you want to do and what you're looking for what you're looking to achieve from your program, you won't feel that it was difficult. It was one of the things that I enjoyed the most was my interview, my Fulbright interview, because the questions they asked were so logical and everything connected to one another, that it was a very good experience, I'd say.
So tell me your preparation or your SOP or your thinking deeply about why you're applying and how you want to take your academic life forward, and putting that in the SOP and the essay where you express what professional or how your PhD program is going to help you. Would that did that help you in your interview because you knew deeply how your journey connects to the next step?
Definitely. I mean, so there were a few things that were slightly different that the panelist asked me during the interview compared to what I had written in my SOP, but definitely the background work, the homework that you've done in writing your SOP, just knowing what you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve that is what is going to help you get selected first. And then it's also going to help you in your interview, definitely.
So one more question I will ask you, because this question comes to me every time when PhD students are applying for Fulbright or even for direct admission. Are publications important while you're applying for a PhD program?
I don't want, it's kind of like a controversial topic. I'd say I had multiple conference presentations. I had worked in multiple projects that were funded through different international organizations, for example, World Bank and Asian Development Bank. And I had a vision. I did not have journal publications when I was applying for a PhD. That is not exactly what they're looking for, I'd say. They're looking for your vision and what you want to achieve, because not having, like, publishing in a journal requires a lot of high quality data, which, being in Pakistan with having limited resources, you cannot always get those resources before you've actually applied for your PhD program at an international university. So that is not a make or break deal, but the amount of experience and your vision of what you want to achieve in the future is what is going to count more.
So yeah, so from your experience, it's also evident that you had done projects in the things that you were interested in. You had collaborated with other people and other organizations and got yourself some experience of research and practical work to show that you are somebody who's really, really invested in the field and who knows what they want to do when they are going further. So when you were leaving now we go to the next section of our Fulbright journey. So once you were selected and you are ready to go, you packed your bags and you're leaving. How was the experience of that leaving from Pakistan? And also what were your goals when you were going to the institution and thinking that these are things that I'm going to achieve? And were you able to achieve those things?
On personal level, it was this is just the part where, so I had like 6 months when I finally knew that I was selected for a Fulbright and I have to leave for the US. I had almost 6 months. I had made a calendar that was backdated and I used to cancel out every single day because it's like, okay, these are the number of days that I've left with my mom before I leave. So, and I told my friend about it. She was like, is that because you're excited to leave? That's why you're back counting. And I was like, no, that's because I'm anxious that I'm going to leave my mom back here and I'll be gone. That's why I was like, okay, I still have this much time to make all the arrangements that I can make for my mom before I leave. So that's on the personal note. On professional note, I knew that I had to work really hard as a PhD student. That's what was in my brain. And other than that, I was very open-minded regarding what my experiences would be, because so when you apply directly for a PhD program, or you're shortlisted or you're selected by a professor while you're going for a PhD, as a research assistant, they usually hire you as an assistant under an umbrella of a project that is going on or that's coming up. So you know that you're going to be working on a certain project as a PhD student. And that the work that you're doing for your professor could also lead to your publications and your final dissertation as a PhD student. But when you are going as a Fulbright student, it's more open-ended because your professor does not make you do things. You have to pick up out of all the projects that your professor has, you have to pick whichever you're interested in, and you have to just do it voluntarily. So I had an open vision. It's like, okay, I'm going to go there and then I'm going to see what is happening, and then I'm going to select what I want to do. So a specific project was not in my mind. Although I did have this choice of selecting, like, so as in water resource planning and management. So I had a choice of working on a smaller area or a bigger area, like not in terms of the intensity of impact of the project, but in terms of the covered area of what I could do. So I always wanted to work on a bigger area on a watershed scale. And I wanted to work with computer models. So that was something I had in my mind. And my professor was very, very flexible in terms of, okay, you can choose whatever you want to do. And I was fortunate that I was able to achieve whatever I had at the back of my mind in terms of my professional goals, that, okay, I want to work on a watershed scale and I want to work with computer models. So yes, if I missed anything, could you please ask me the question again?
I definitely will ask you another question, or maybe you want to share some pictures or anything that you would like to about your journey or your experience in the university. And the next question would be about once you share your experiences about how did you find the academics, and how was it different for you, the quality and how they are organized. For everyone else, I will just remind that please don't raise your hands. Put your questions in the Q&A box, and Dr. Areba will take your questions once the question and answer session with her is over.
There was some connection. I think there's some connection issue.
Connection issue. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to share your screen, or should we go forward? Okay.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. So this is me on the day when I had my pre-departure orientation in Islamabad. It's just the backdrop is Fulbright, and I was so excited. I was just really excited that day because I met all the other people from the same cohort, and it was just before meeting everyone else who was selected for a Fulbright program in that batch, I had a different mindset. But the day I met everyone else, I was like, my feeling about being a Fulbright, it just got elevated by a lot. So that was a very exciting day for me. Okay, these are some pictures of the people I met in the US. This is from the first couple of months that I was there. So everyone over here is a Fulbrighter, and this lady was doing a postdoc on a Fulbright scholarship, and 1, 2, and 3 of us were doing a PhD, and these 2 were doing a master's. So when you're going to go there, you're going to find people from Fulbright program or from in other ways, and it's like you're going to definitely very quickly form a community, and you're going to see how you're going to stand out from everybody else when you're with the Fulbrighters. So like you asked, what was my motivation to select water resources, basically. So the picture on the right is the view from the plane while I took my first flight to Iowa. And so this is how Iowa looks like when it's summer. And the picture on the left is what Balochistan looks like from the plane. So I did not take this picture, the one on the left. My friend who was the other Fulbrighter who got selected for water resources planning and management in the same cohort, she took the picture on the left while she was flying out of Quetta. But this was basically my motivation. It's like going to a place that is this green and maybe picking up a little bit of technical expertise that I can contribute back to a place like this, like Balochistan. This is mostly with, these are all the pictures where I'm with my team. So on the top right, I am with everyone in my group. We went for a conference to Baltimore in 2018. This is from that conference. And the picture on the bottom right is my major professor and me when I graduated from, like, not graduated, when I cleared my qualifying exam, the prelim exam. This from that day. The top left picture is when we were working in the field. This was during COVID, and we were getting photographed basically. So we were working and we were getting photographs. So there are all kinds of experiences that you're going to go through during your program. And the one on the bottom left is when one of the students, one of the PhD students had graduated and they were moving away. So we had a get together. So this is everyone in the group, the whole research group that we had. These are the three pictures from the COVID era, where we were meeting on Zoom and doing our research and wearing masks while we were working in the labs. And also, so the picture on the right, the bigger picture on the right, is from Pakistan Student Association's get together that was held during the COVID time, and we all had to wear a mask while we were meeting each other. It was like, especially we're taking pictures because those pictures were gonna go on Facebook and the university was going to see them. So we had to keep our masks on. That was a difficult time, I'd say. I mean,
For everyone, yeah.
yes, that was a difficult time. That was probably the only big hurdle during my program. But everybody got through it. Most of us got through it. So just want to show how cold it gets there in Iowa State. It's just piles and piles of snow. It's just a lot of snow over there, and you get used to it. You start enjoying it instead of being scared. So the first time when I was there, the first year when it started getting cold, I was so scared. I used to feel that, oh my God, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna die. I'm gonna freeze to death. But that doesn't happen. So if you end up going to a state that's really cold, you'll figure it out and you'll start liking the cold. So I do miss the cold now after being back to Karachi. This was from the day when I had my final presentation when I defended my PhD. So this is, it's Michelle Sapir, my major professor, and Dr. Kanwar, my co-supervisor, and it's me and one of my best friends on the right. So one of the best things that came out of my PhD program was that my major professor ended up taking in one of my best friends as her PhD student right after I left. So this is Shoaib, and while I was defending my PhD, he had just reached Iowa, and he started his program with my major professor because I suggested him, and I'm really glad that she took my suggestion. So that's one of the things one of the very positive things that came out of my program. Again, you're going to have all sorts of experiences. It's going to be so diverse. You're going to be working on your projects, and you're also going to find your community, people who are following the same religion, people who are following different religions that are from all parts of the world. I think just learn the technical stuff that I learned during the program. That was just a small part of it, frankly. Everything else, just the cultural diversity that I was able to experience because of being there. That is, I couldn't have learned that or just experienced that anywhere else. And that is something that I value the most. because of my the Fulbright program. Other things that I did, I learned some Taekwondo, which I couldn't learn while I was here in Pakistan. So I was the oldest person in my class. Everybody else was like, I don't know, 17, 18. And I was like 30. So, but I wasn't ashamed. It was like, at least I'm doing something. I'm learning stuff. And I learned Taekwondo during my time, during the COVID time when everything was closed. So I was like, I need to find an outlet. When most of the university in the US have really good extracurricular activities that you can take part in, and Fulbright has always been very supportive when it came to just learning new things and interacting with other people. I never had any hurdle whenever I communicated with my Fulbright advisor in the US regarding, it's like, okay, don't do this or don't do that. They don't try to control you. You have all the liberty to explore whatever you want to explore. I also ended up feeding a squirrel in my balcony with my bare hand, which was just, it was Eid day for me. It was like Eid, just like, oh my God, I'm just able to feed the squirrel. It was like, it was a stray squirrel. It was just completely wild, but it happened. So I'm really happy about that too. If Fulbright hadn't funded me, I wouldn't have been able to experience that. So thank you, Fulbright. That's it from my side, and whatever other questions you have. Mara.
Sure. So I think a few more questions, and then we'll open, we'll take some questions that our audience has been asking. Tell us about the difference in the academic experience at the university. I know anyway, the way the academics are done, they are different, but at the PhD level is also very, it would be good to know how that works.
Some of the things that I would like to mention is that when you become a PhD student, the faculty that you're dealing with is basically expecting you to know how to do research. So you have to remember that as a PhD student, you don't have to know everything, but you need to know the basics of how to do a research, and you should be able to just guide your own self to go from one point to another. And while you're doing that, you can discuss it with your major professor or other committee members that are your other professors that are your committee members, that if you're going in the right track or not. But basically from the start to the end, it's your baby. You're going to conceive it, you're going to give birth to it, you're going to bring it up. So that's one of the biggest expectations that academic expectations that I've seen that you should be able to keep up with. The other thing is you have to be good at communicating. Just remember one thing: if you don't know something, just ask. Hopefully everyone who's here is whoever is listening is very serious about pursuing their PhD or their master's, either through Fulbright or other ways. You are going to be there as an international student. The feeling that if you're a PhD student, you are supposed to know everything, that is not what they're expecting from you. You are there as a complete stranger in a new environment with new rules, with new kind of setup, like academic setup. Everything is different, and you just go ahead and ask, even the basic questions. Don't be scared that you don't know about it. But learn how to communicate effectively. Whatever problems you run in, you should communicate those to your department or your major professor, and give you 100% and just be honest. Anything I missed?
Yeah, so this is a question, and you can decide whether you want to answer this or you have anything around this. Is that did you come across any ups and downs during your Fulbright journey? If any moments or any challenges that came across your way, and you decided to how did you deal with them? Also, that would be great to know.
As for PhD candidates, for PhD students, one thing that I did not recognize in the beginning was just remember that a PhD is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to consider everything else to be important in your life while you're doing a PhD, because it's going to take a really long time for you to do a PhD, and just don't burn yourself out. So I had burnout, and which is very common for people who are doing a PhD, who are in academics. So one of the difficulties that I faced was burnout. The other one was imposter syndrome. And people don't talk about this until they're actually really deep into the problem. It's like, whatever I'm doing, it's like, it's no big deal if so many other people have done this. It's like, what am I contributing to the research world? To some extent, that's true. A lot of people have done that, whatever you're doing. But that doesn't mean that you're not learning. That doesn't mean that you're not going to eventually add value to the research area that you're working on. So just overcoming imposter syndrome and just not burning out is very important. And also remembering, a lot of international students had a hard time remembering that there are resources available on campus where you can, for example, there's a writing committee, like there are people who would help you with writing your reports and your dissertation and other things for free. You just need to get an appointment from them. Other universities would have a slightly different structure, but most of the universities in the US have all of these kind of resources available to the students, and you need to take advantage of those resources so that you don't burn yourself out by trying to do everything by yourself. That's one of the things that I realized a little bit later during my program, but I tell everyone, whoever wants any kind of suggestions, like just explore around you and take advantage of the resources. One of the other things that I faced was, so a little bit more than halfway through my program, COVID hit. And initially it was only supposed to be like 10 days of lockdown, but that never ended. And it was really difficult to navigate during that time. It's like, what is even happening? So, but again, I would say if you are in the US, my experience being in the US and pursuing my degree is that everyone is very understanding. If you're honest, you're going to make it through, and you're going to make it through really well. So, yeah.
Those are really important points. Thank you so much for sharing them. I think our audience will really and greatly appreciate knowing about these things once they are done with the application process and done their interviews, shortlisted and going eventually for their Fulbright journey. I also want to ask you, once you were done with your program and you were coming back to Pakistan, one does have a lot of expectations, a lot of thinking processes going on. Were there any for you as well, and whether those expectations are met, how you are feeling now being back here, and is there something that you have been doing that you really want to talk about?
One of the things that was on my mind while I was coming back professionally was people are going to expect a lot once you're done with your PhD and you've been a Fulbrighter. People expect a lot once you're back. They expect a lot in terms of your technical contribution wherever you're working. So I'm working at a university, so I am expected to. I had never taught a graduate class before this, but I was offered a graduate class, and I was expected to accept that offer and to be able to lead the whole class on my own. So that's one of the expectations which I was expecting to get, and I'm able to take care of it. One of the things that is important is that I'm able to take care of it. The other thing is that, again, they're going to expect that you're going to lead different projects, you're going to mentor other students with their research and everything. So it's just the part where it was like, okay, I will have to be very efficient and I have to contribute maximum possible amount of technical and non-technical managerial expertise to my workplace. Um, that is what I was expecting, and that's what I'm facing right now in a positive way.
So I'm going to ask you one more question about your experience in the US, and then maybe conclude another question and take questions from our audience. How important it is to build connections and networks while you are in the US, and how did you work on that, and did they help you?
One of the things is, so especially in my field, when you're working with land and water resources, there are different organizations, government and non-governmental organizations, that are working on different projects, and they have the data. So everything, when you're doing research, everything is dependent on the amount of data, the quality of data that you're available, that you have. So just being present at different seminars and conferences and networking would help you with being able to understand that where can you get certain data and how can you get it. And when people from different organizations have seen that you're a serious researcher, they would happily contribute to your research. So that's one of the reasons why you should focus on building relationships while you're in the US, outside, especially outside of your university, not just with the professors that are in the university. One of the other things that happened unexpectedly was just having a really good relationship with my major professor. Is that when I suggested my friend Shoaib to her while she was looking for another PhD student while I was leaving, she trusted my opinion and she took him in as her next PhD student. So I wasn't really expecting that to happen, because it just happened spontaneously. But that is another factor. So, and especially, so once you have good relationships with the people that you work with firsthand or secondhand, like people that contributed to your research in terms of data or anything, once you're back, you can keep on working with them and keep on publishing in good journals, because the quality of data that is available in the US for a serious researcher is way better than what is available in Pakistan. So if you want to keep publishing, I'd say that you should focus on developing good professional relationships with people around you. I think there's some network issue. Amara should be back soon.
Hi, Areba. I think Umara got disconnected. Is it a good time to take a few questions from the audience?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the first question is, do you think one is more productive in USA, where you have a proper setup and group working in your field, as compared to when you come back and you're mostly on your own?
So it's not true that you cannot make a research group, or you cannot join a research group in Pakistan, and you can only do that in the US. The part where the fact that there are more resources in the US compared to Pakistan when it comes to research and everything, that is true. But if you have finished your PhD and you come back, you have the technical capability and the managerial skills that you can create your own research group and hire people, not hire like pay them out of your pocket, but if you're working at a university or a research organization, you can, and if you write a proposal and you get the proposal funded, you have the resources now. So you can hire serious people and you can create your own research group. So you can be the one who can start a research group instead of depending on the fact that somebody else has a research group that you can join them.
Thank you. I think that answers your question. All right, so the next question is, what qualities, according to you, should an individual have for applying on the Fulbright scholarship? If you had to just jot a few qualities down, what would those be?
I think having the vision. I think that's the most important quality that a person needs to have, because you can have really high CGPA, you can have a lot of research experience, but just working in a research project where you just had to do the job that was assigned to you is not enough. You need to have your own vision of how you can contribute to the community with whatever you're going to learn through your Fulbright program.
Sorry, everyone. My internet suddenly glitched. Now I'm back. So Dr. Veera, can you see in the Q&A box more questions? I think because I glitched in between, so I cannot see the questions that were before. Maybe I'll see the ones that are new.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I can go over the questions if Amara, you can't see, because there are quite a few questions that are very monotonous. So I'll just pick a few and ask.
Sure. I can see the new ones. Mashal, like, what is better GRE score for admission in PhD? Is this a new question?
Perhaps, yes. Yes, that's a new question.
So recently, a lot of universities in the US have stopped requiring a GRE test for one or other reasons. There are multiple reasons because of which they've done that. So universities in the US are not actually looking for a very high GRE score at this point, but I would say that focusing on your GRE and getting a good score is going to help your own intellectual capability. I learned a lot during my GRE process, not just the technical stuff, but how quickly you have to answer your GRE questions because of the time limitation, and the logic part, how you have to learn how to connect one topic to another, and it's one solution to another. I mean, I think just focusing on your GRE, despite the fact that a lot of US universities are not preferring GRE at this point, is still very useful. So still focus on it.
Thank you for that. But for Fulbright, just keep in mind that GRE is a requirement, and you have to for a completed application, you have to submit the GRE. I have two very interesting questions. One is, did you reach out to your main supervisor before leaving for US, or completed coursework before and then decided on your thesis and supervisor? And second, okay, go ahead and answer this one and then I'll ask the second one. Did you reach out to your main supervisor before leaving?
So, yeah. So,
were you required to do it as part of the Fulbright program?
Yes.
And did you discuss about your thesis and coursework before heading to the United States, or was it when you reached there?
I only had, so the part where I had to have a major professor was, before I left for the US, was a requirement by the Fulbright. But I did not have to discuss my dissertation topic and all the courses before I had to leave. By the time I reached at the university, the semester had almost kind of started. So I had to decide which courses I had to take in the first semester. That's the only discussion I had with my major professor before leaving.
All right, thank you. And second, you mentioned computer modeling. So did you have background in computers, or you had to take additional courses in computer modeling?
No, I do not have a background in computers. I did not necessarily need to take classes in computers. I could take classes in programming. So I did not have any restriction through Fulbright or through my major professor at the US University. So the computer models that I had used some of them before I left for my PhD. And it was more of learning that specific computer model. So I had to take few workshops to learn how to use that specific computer models and just do a lot of literature reviews. So no courses specifically.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
we
Dr.
have sure, go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead.
So we have a question from Mudassir. Are supervisors supportive in research and thesis completion, or they leave students at their own to proceed?
As a PhD student, you need to know how to do a research. But in my experience, I have received all the possible support from my major professor and from other people in the research group. For example, my major professor's research associates were also PhDs. So they were always available to guide me through the process. But basically, as a PhD student, most of the PhD students have already done a master's, and US universities usually prefer taking in PhD students that have done a master's with thesis. So they have done some sort of research. That is why a professor usually accepts a PhD student, because a PhD student is expected to lead the research that they're getting hired for and they're getting paid for by the professor. That's slightly different when it comes to Fulbright program, but again, the basic expectation is same, that you have to know how to do research, and otherwise, whatever support you need, they're always available.
Thank you. There's another question by Muhammad Nizam. What are the major water resources field for MS in USA? Could you please tell some of water resources majors?
So one of the things when it comes to water resources is just the water quantity part. So different universities are, so the research being done in the US is a lot more advanced compared to what is being done in Pakistan. So the requirements of water resources planning and management in Pakistan are a lot more basic when you compare that to the US. Different universities are at different levels of research. So in water resources, when you're doing a master's, you could either work on watershed water management, so the amount of water that is present in the watershed. The other thing could be planning and designing different kind of irrigation systems depending on the climate of the area. Water quality is one of the important topics that a lot of state universities are focusing on, especially the ones in the Midwest, because the Midwest universities are basically in the corn belt and they're producing a lot of agriculture waste. That's what my focus was on, just managing the water quality that is getting deteriorated because of the agricultural activities. And when it comes to water resources, there's the impact of climate change on water resources, when either flooding or drought or stuff like that. So different universities are focusing on different areas, and some universities are focusing on multiple areas at the same time. It depends on the professor, whoever you're interested in working with, that what has been their background in terms of research, and what are the current projects that they are leading, that they're working on, that you could work on.
Thank you, Dr. Areba. Tariq Aziz is asking, I'm going for PhD in United States in water resources. What are potential areas in which I can pursue PhD? I have done work in surface area using sensors and worked in project which involves resistivity survey, and also have worked on GRACE data for groundwater.
I think it's an open word. It depends so whatever work you've already done, are you still looking to pursue the same areas of research, or are you open to exploring more? And even when you're open to exploring more, there's still a little bit of focus. Like I mentioned earlier, that I wanted to work on watershed scale and use computer models to do the prediction part. It depends on what your heart says, where you want to end up. However, no matter where you end up, the process of the PhD that you're going to go through, the classes that you're going to take, the research that you're going to do, either it was your primary choice or not, you're still going to learn so much technically that by the time you're done, you can diversify again. You can go into any specific field because you've already learned how to do research out of scratch. So, and like I said, different universities are focusing on different things, and almost all areas of research are available for a PhD student in water resources when you go to the US, just depending on which university you end up in and which professor you end up working with.
So we have a few generic questions. Maybe you can answer them, and if I can add in them as well. Can a student with engineering background go for PhD in management or business?
Okay. So that's basically a question if you can change your field or not.
Yeah, basically.
One of the question could be that would the university give you admission based on the fact that you have an engineering background and you want to pursue your PhD in management? That depends on the university. So, but there are a lot of students that I've seen that have drastically changed their fields of studies. It's you who's going to decide if you can do it or not. So it's not, if one university won't accept you, the other one might. If you can do it or not, that depends on you. You will have to do a lot more background homework on your own when you're changing your field, especially pursuing a PhD in something. You should know the background, the book stuff. I mean, we know if you've worked in management, although you're in an engineering major, you would know how things are done in real, but do you know the book stuff? Do you know the basic terminologies and stuff like that? That comes to you at the end of the day. If you would be able to keep up with the classwork and with understanding what the other researchers are talking about, the terminologies that they're using. So that's, long story short, that's what I would say.
Just to add to that, I think if you're changing field and you're applying for a PhD, you have to make a case for yourself why you're changing that field. And also you have to connect your background and your new area of interest and maybe your work experience and see and make a case for yourself, because it's definitely important for the committees to know that there's a strong reason for you to switch from a certain background to this new background. So if you have a case and if you have a good thought out plan of why this is happening, I think you might have a chance with the PhD program and the committee. So there are a few questions that are there. I think the CGPA question you did address during your interview during the session, that CGPA is not the only thing that the committee is looking at, it's the whole profile that they look at. So I think this is about it for the questions for today. I would say thank you so much, everybody, for joining the session. Thank you to our speaker, Dr. Areba, for doing this session with us. We greatly enjoyed the journey and the insights that we shared. I just want to reiterate the recording of this program will be this session will be uploaded on the USEFP YouTube page, so please look out for that, and please don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. I thank you all for your participation, and I thank you especially Dr. Areba for joining us and doing this session for us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
You have a good day.
You too.